88, wearing his heart on his sleeve, sharing a poem he'd written about his favourite pet dog, who'd recently died, whose name was Bo.
I just made up my mind that I'd write about my friend Bo and try to make it rhyme. And it came out like this. He never came to me when I would call unless I had a tennis ball or he felt like it. But mostly he didn't come at all. When he was young, he never learned to heel or sit or stay. He did things his way. Discipline was not his bag, but when you're with him, things sure didn't drag. He'd dig up a rose bush just to spite me, and when I'd grab him, he'd turn and bite me. He bit lots of folks from day to day. The delivery boy was his favorite prey. The gas man wouldn't read our meter. He said we owned a real man-eater. He set the house on fire, but the story is too long to tell. But suffice to say that he survived and the house survived as well. And on evening walks, and Mom took him, he was always first out the door. The old one and I brought up the rear because our bones were sore. And he'd charge up the street with Mom hanging on. What a beautiful sight they were. And if it was still light and the tourists were out, they created a bit of a stir. But every once in a while, he'd stop in his track and with a frown on his face, turn around, just to make sure that the old one was there to follow him where he was bound. We're early to bedders in our house. I guess I'm the first to retire. And as I'd leave the room, he'd look up at me and get up from his place by the fire. He knew where the tennis balls were upstairs, and I'd give him one for a while, and he'd shove it under the bed with his nose, and I'd dig it out with a smile. But before very long, he'd tire of the ball and be asleep in his corner in no time at all. And there were nights when I'd feel him climb upon our bed and lie between us, and I'd pat his head. And there were nights when I'd feel this stare, and I'd wake up and he'd be sitting there, and I'd reach out my hand to stroke his hair, and sometimes I'd feel him sigh, and I'd think I know the reason why. He'd wake up at night and he would have this fear of the dark, of life, of lots of things. And he'd be glad to have me near. And now he's dead. And there are nights when I think I feel him climb up upon our bed and lie between us. And I pat his head. And there are nights when I think I feel that stare, and I reach out my hand to stroke his hair, but he's not there. Oh, how I wish that wasn't so. I'll always love a dog named Bo.
In January 1997, James Stewart died at home, aged 89. In tributes, he was called an American national treasure and the embodiment of decency and moral courage. But his friend Doris Day possibly put it best, saying simply, Jimmy Stewart had a wonderful life.